Hey guys, today we're in the book of First Chronicles chapter 1. Now, let me help you understand the book of Chronicles. Much like Samuel and Kings, it's one book. It's only divided in two for the English Bible when they put in chapters and verses because it was such a long book. The thing that you need to understand most about the book of Chronicles is that the book of Chronicles in the Hebrew Bible is the last book of the Hebrew Bible. So in the English, we read Kings, we read Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles because a lot of it has to go back to what we have learned in Samuel and Kings. But the difference of Chronicles is that the writer of Chronicles, which we're not sure who wrote it, but they wrote it after the exile. So we just read Kings where Israel had been exiled by Assyria. Judah had been exiled by Babylon. They're going to go to Babylon for 70 years, and then a small group of Israelites are going to return back to Jerusalem and rebuild Jerusalem, the walls, and the temple, and to start back this Yahweh worship that God told them to do all the way back in the book of Exodus. So the writer of Chronicles, though it's talking a lot about David and a lot of genealogies, the point of the whole book of Chronicles, first and second, is to show a group of Israelites who have been looking for this David, this Messiah, this new king that would come, but now they've been exiled. So many of them believe that, oh, it's over. We've missed the boat. Maybe God isn't going to send the Messiah. Maybe we don't know what's going on. And so the writer of Chronicles is chronicling, that's where we get the title, right? He's putting in order from Saul to David, all the way through all of the kings, through the exile period, which includes a lot of prophets, and also after the exile. So the writer of Chronicles is saying, yes, we have been exiled, and yes, you think there is no hope, but there is hope. There's still a line. God made us a promise that there's going to be a king in the line of David, in the line of Judah, and that still is true. Even though we got moved to Babylon, the line, the lineage, the heritage has kept true. It's kept pure. So the writer of Chronicles is saying, you feel like there's no hope, but there's still hope. There's still hope after the exile. And so as we read the book of Chronicles, a lot of it will be going back to Samuel and back to Kings, but a lot of it is also after the exile, right? So it's looking forward to this new David, this new Messiah, this new leader that is happening. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, it won't seem as repetitive. Though there are some things that are repetitive, but the writer of Chronicles is writing the repetitive things to give hope to those who have been exiled, a hope in the future. This is what David did. This is what the Messiah did. This is what the king would do. Here's what the King of Kings is going to do. And so it's just a different way of looking at things. And I'll help point those things out in the next couple weeks as we get to some of those things. But probably what you've already learned, if you've already read, is the first 9 chapters of Chronicles is just genealogies. And we're not going to read every name in here. There's a couple things I want to point out in every chapter. But remember, everything that Judah has known is destroyed. It's gone. They're now post-exile. They've gone to Babylon for 70 years. All of Jerusalem has been destroyed. Now they've come back. They're rebuilding Jerusalem. They've rebuilt the temple. And so you have to go back and keep in order from Abraham all the way forward to after the exile to say there's still hope for the new king. There's still hope for the Messiah. There's still hope for the new David, Jesus. And so a couple things I want to point out in the first chapter. Notice where it says Adam, Seth. Now, we know Adam and Eve, they had 3 kids, Cain, Abel, and Seth, but Cain and Abel is not mentioned here, but Seth is. And then we go instantly to Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These are the survivors of the flood. This is the start of the new world. And then we get their kind of breakdown. So it says the sons of Japheth. This is the line of Japheth. The sons of Ham. This is the sons of the line of Ham. And then Shem. These are the lines. What's interesting is about these lines, we talked about this a little bit all the way back in the book of Genesis, but because of who's mentioned, we know where they were at. So for example, verse 5, the sons of Japheth. These were around Europe and Northern Asia. Okay, so in the area, they kind of took Europe and Northern Asia. When we get to Ham, this is Africa and the Far East. Okay, so India, Asia, those types of things. But then we get to Shem. This was Syria, Persia, what we would call the Arab states now. And so though these are the descendants of Noah, they broke off and they kind of took huge regions. And that's what we learned from some of these kings who are, some of these people who were mentioned. Then in verse 28, we see from Abraham to Jacob. The sons of Abraham is Isaac and Ishmael, right? So remember Isaac, he's the son of the promise. The promise that was made to Abraham will go through Isaac, that will go through Jacob or Israel. Ishmael is not, right? Ishmael is not the son of the promise, and he will create the nation of Edom. And remember, God promised that he would become a great nation, but it won't be the nation of promise. And so you have Israel and you have Edom. Verse 32, you see Keturah. This is Abraham's second wife after Sarah dies. And then we see in verse 34, Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac had 2 sons, Esau and Israel. And so Israel, or Jacob, will be that son of promise. So the promise went to Abraham, went to Isaac, and then went to Jacob, or here called Israel, because he had 12 sons, which will make up the 12 tribes of Israel. But one more thing I want to notice, or a couple things I want to know. One more thing I want to notice in chapter 1 is verse 43. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the people of Israel. Notice this, Edom became a nation first before Israel. Okay? A lot of times we think that because we're not first, that God doesn't love us, he's not blessing us, he's not prospering us, right? So Edom, which comes from Ishmael, was promised to be a nation, but they weren't the nation of promise. Though they were first and though they were the greatest at first, it's not what God intended. It's not what God blessed. So always to be first is not always the best or the blessed, right? So we think of that way because that's what we want, but that's not how God thinks. God has intentionality, he has purpose, and everything works in his season and under his rule. So that's it for chapter 1. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. Just remember, Chronicles is at the end of your Bible. Though we see it here, it's at the end. The writer is connecting dots from David to the new David. There's still hope of the Messiah to come, the new David. Hope that makes sense. We'll see you tomorrow in chapter 2. God bless.